The only plan you've ever had, your only grown-up plan, has not panned out the way you expected. You're sitting here thinking, what the heck happened and what am I going to do next? Well, I'm in the same place. This is where we find out those answers. Life has a way of changing your plans, the ones you never planned to change. Welcome back to episode 2 of What the Heck Next? My name is Carrie Morrow. I spent my entire professional life as a real Hollywood producer, not the girlfriend of one, not a vanity credit, but a real Hollywood producer. I am not from California. I found my way here by way of fate. I want to share with you a little bit about my journey so that you understand how I got to be where I am. Because the most popular question I get is, did you go to school to be a producer? No, I did not. I went to school to make a lot of money. I grew up in New York. I was born in New York City. I had one parent. My mother was young and she said to me, money pays for choices. And I knew that that was what I wanted to have in life. She taught me that money let you pick where you would live, what you could drive, where you would travel, what you would learn. And I went to college to make money or to learn to make money. I didn't love where I went to college, but I got a 4-year degree out of it, which is shocking because I was not a fan of school. And I then moved first to Boston, then to Miami. I was happy. I was out of college. I was not in school, and I was working in a bar as a bartender, waitress in South Florida. I was having a great time. It was after college, and life was just a big party. Really loved being in Florida after spending my life in New York and then my college in New England. It was time to hit the sunshine. I moved down there and I was working for a couple of years in a bar, but it was really time to probably get a grown-up job. My mother kept saying, you don't work in a bar if you have a 4-year degree. So what I didn't tell you in episode 1 is that my brother is actor Rob Morrow. And if the name doesn't sound familiar, his shows do. He was the star of Northern Exposure, Dr. Fleischman. He was on Numbers and Billions and Quiz Show and Mother and Street Time, and the credits just go on and on. And not that that nepotism helped, but it's just a fact and a part of my journey because back in the 80s, he got his first major role in a movie with Johnny Depp, who the two of them were really just starting out. And it was a little TNA movie, they called it, called Private Resort. And it was going to shoot, oddly, 4 weeks in Florida and 4 weeks in California. My mother convinced him to get me a job as a PA, which is production assistant. And I said, okay, well, I'll leave my very profitable bartending job and go work on this movie. And at the time, if you said Johnny Depp to me, I wouldn't have known who he was. He was 18 years old. He was fresh out of Florida. He was married. And my brother was 18 also. They were just two kids making this movie. So I got a job as a production assistant. And I would wake up every day at 4:30 in the morning. And I would go over to the production office and pick up a van and then go over and pick up Johnny Depp and take him to work. And it was a job that I was making $25 a day flat. No overtime, no nothing. So if my day started at 4:30 in the morning and then ended at 2:30 in the morning, $25. The deal with the movie was that I would work on the movie in Florida, and then I would go with the movie to California and work on part 2. I had a dog at the time named Tuffy, And I would take him to work with me sometimes because it was just too hot to leave him home. And he took a nice nap at Johnny, I must tell you. And Johnny was so cool about it. And we had such a good time on that movie. And that was my only exposure to Hollywood at the time. And we were at a resort off the coast of South Florida. And it was really an experience. And I would drive Johnny to work, and then I'd park the van and pick up a bus and go pick up extras at the airport and then bring them to the set. And then I would sit on a construction site next to the set all day and tell them to stop their big machines while the movie was rolling. And then after that, I would get back in the van. I'd drive Johnny back to his hotel and then come back to the office and do more work. And it could be 2 o'clock in the morning by the time I was done. I'd sleep on the desk at the production office and then wake up at 4:30 and go pick up Johnny again. And then my mother bought me a one-way ticket on United Airlines, $77 to Los Angeles. And off I was to California. I was going to live with the makeup artist, Deborah. And at first I was going to stay with my brother, but he ended up staying at the producer's house with Johnny. So that wasn't an option. And this makeup artist offered that I could stay at her house, except that when I got there, her boyfriend opened the door and said, "You're not staying here. Place is too small, one room, a bedroom, one room, and we have a baby." I was like, "Oh, great. Okay, never mind." I decided that I was going to try to figure out somewhere else to live. And my mother gave me the phone number of a relative who was also living in California, and they gave me a place to live for a short period of time. And then I ended up renting a house, and off my journey went. As far as the job went, well, I showed up on my first day of work and I walked into the production office. I'm like, "Hi, I'm Carrie Morrow. I'm Rob's sister." And they said, "Who? What?" And I said, "Well, I was a PA in Florida." And they said, "There's no job for you." And I was like, "Okay, I don't think you understand. I moved here on a one-way ticket. I don't really have anywhere to live. And my brother is the star of your movie." And they said, "We don't care. There's no job for you. We hired our own people." And there I was with no job. So I started to show up to that set every single day, hoping that eventually there may be a job, just show my enthusiasm. And it didn't work out that way. I actually ended up meeting a grip on that set who introduced me to his mother, who taught me how to be a script supervisor, who actually got me some jobs on some huge rock videos. But at the time, I didn't know there were rock videos with Madonna and Sting and Michael Jackson and Rebe and Janet Jackson. And I ended up doing script supervising for a short period of time and having a lot of fun with that and meeting a lot of music celebrities. And that was fun, but that wasn't where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. I also worked at Greenblatt's Deli at 2 o'clock in the morning, slicing the meat and preparing the deli for the next day. And I was doing stand-up comedy for $20, the Comedy Store and the Ice House and Laugh Factory and all those places, just to try to make light of what I was going through. And then somehow I got introduced to somebody who said there was an opening at a production company, and I ended up getting the job at the production company in the finance department because I have a degree in finance and business. I got the job, and 2 weeks later, my boss was fired and my new one was hired. And she came in and she said to me, "I'm going to teach you how to make movies, but you have to work full time." And I said, "Well, I want to be a stand-up comedian." She said, "Well, then I'll hire somebody else." I said, "Okay, I'll take the job. She wants to pay me more. I'll take the job." Then I started working at that company, and I worked there for quite some time, for about a year, possibly a little bit more. And my boss said, "We have a movie that's in trouble. You're going to go to Tucson and get me the reports," because you have to remember, no FedEx, no phones, no cell phones, no fax machines. Just get on the plane, go to Tucson, get the report, come back to LA. When I got to Tucson, there was not what she wanted. The girl had not done anything. And they decided to replace the girl on the movie and replace her with me, which was wow. Okay, that was not the job I wanted. And it's the job that some people would just die for the opportunity. It just wasn't what I wanted. I said yes. They've started to pay me a lot more money. They actually wanted to pay me less than what they were paying the girl that they fired. And I convinced them to pay me more. And they did. And I stayed on the movie for a long time, probably like 2.5 to 3 months. And I stayed in Tucson, and it was my first experience on a movie on location in the finance accounting department. And I had a great time and I learned a lot very fast. From that point on, I started getting accounting jobs. That company ended up going under. And then I got a job in the post department of the movie Bull Durham with Kevin Costner and Susan Sarandon and Tim Robbins. And I actually got to work on a reshoot and met them all. And that was great. Although the movie was shot in Durham, North Carolina, I got to work in the LA part where they did the reshoots. And that was like my first, I'm starting to meet big celebrities. It was fun. When I was young, I said to my mother, I don't want to wear pantyhose. I don't want to take the elevator to the 42nd floor and have a 1 hour break at 1 o'clock and then go home at 5 and put on my pantyhose the next day. Not going to happen. I wanted to be free and be fun. And my mother's like, well, you can only be a camp counselor in the summer. But I found that working in movies was like being at camp. You were outside and you were in the dirt and you were with friends and you were staying up late and you were having lunches together. And it was so much fun. I had such a great time. I went off from there and started to make other movies and accounting on other movies, and shortly got a little bit tired of that. And I didn't want to work at a desk in an accounting office counting where everybody else spent the money. And I was actually working for Home Box Office at the time, doing movies of the week for CBS, HBO. I said to the head of that company, I really, really want to be a producer. I want to be the person that spends the money. I don't want to sit at a desk anymore. I want to be outside and having a good time and spending the money. He said, you're not going to make it. Just you're great at what you do. Just women producers, it's such a hard road. I really want to try. He connected me with somebody who got me on a show, and I got my first production manager credit. And after that, I ended up on a movie that I was starting off as the accountant, but the director was quitting and the new one came in and he was DGA, and this is 1993, and they said, we need a DGA UPM. You are the DGA UPM, and we'll get you in, and you're the DGA UPM. And some people spend a lifetime collecting their days and their thing, and boom, I was in the DGA. Once again, didn't try very hard, but I was in. I will say that I kept taking invitations that kept moving my path forward, and opportunities that kept giving me producer credits. It was not easy, but it was really, really fun to grow and to learn. And the budgets just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the stars kept getting bigger and bigger. My first credit as a co-producer was on Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood with the Wayans brothers. And actually, it was the entire family. And we had a crazy good time. We were crying every day. We were laughing so much. And it was really fun. And we actually shot that movie in South Central Los Angeles during the height of gang issues. And we had to meet with the police department, 77th Division, to get a lecture about what colors we could wear and not to wear bandanas and not where to park. And there was even a gang outbreak one night, and we had to be escorted out of the neighborhood because there was gunfire. It was a really interesting experience, and I was so grateful to be on that movie. And that led me to How to Be a Player with Bernie Mac and Bill Bellamy and many other movies from there. I had a great time moving up and meeting executive producers who would then move on to another company and take me with them. I met an executive named Christopher Zarpis, who then went off to be the president of Scott Free, and he's going to be a guest on my podcast. He was the president of Tony and Ridley's company for quite some time, and I got to work with him. I did a movie with them called Clay Pigeons, and it was with Joaquin Phoenix and Vince Vaughn. And that movie, I was going in to take over because it was in a little bit of a financial mess. And it was shot way up in northern Utah in a place called Brigham City, which had like one blinking light. It was a strange experience to see. It was the first time because I grew up in New York City. They had a Sears Roebuck store. Like it was a store, like is literally just a, you walk in and there's like a desk, and there were like all these catalogs around the room, and you would order what you wanted from Sears, and then it would show up to the store. So there was no Sears Roebuck store, like a building. It was just a, like an, or like a mail order place. Like you would order from them and the stuff would arrive. We actually shot in a tiny town called Deweyville, which one of the stars, Janine Garofalo, actually, they found a box of puppies and she got a dog and she ended up naming it Dewey. She ended up naming her little dog Dewey. And one of the crazy stories about that is that we were shooting in this little town, and we were shooting a pretty brutal murder sex scene with Vince Vaughn. And the owners of the house wanted to know what was the content of the scene. And we had to write fake pages because it was so heavily religious, this little tiny town, that if there was any sort of bludgeon, sex, murder, debauchery, we were not going to be able to shoot there. So we did. We rewrote the pages and gave it to them and made our movie there. We got to blow things up, and it was really a crazy good time. That was a really fun movie in Utah. I learned about a lot about Utah at that time, and it was interesting because everybody I'd meet would give me a Book of Mormon, and by the end of that movie, I had 7 Books of Mormon as gifts. And I learned so much about shooting on location there and how easy it was. It's a great place to make movies. And I have ended up returning many times in the future to work there. After Clay Pigeons, somebody from Scott Free went over to Joel Silver's company. I ended up going over there to start making movies for them in 97, 98. I went back to Utah, a place called Spanish Fork, Utah, and made a movie called Made Men with Jim Belushi and Timothy Dalton. And it was really a big action movie. One of the crazy action scenes, we had to flip a police car. It was the first time I ever was going to have a major police chase car flipping in a movie. And we were going to flip this car. They put this like piece of a telephone pole in the center of the car, and then the stuntman presses the button, and the pole goes through the bottom of the car and launches the car into the air, and it spins. And then the scene is that the police car is going to land on its roof, and then it's going to slide right up into camera. I was concerned because the road was really windy. How is it going to make the turn and the flip and make it to camera? My concerns were realized when they scream action and I'm at the far end at the camera waiting for the end result, and all we hear is screech and splash, because one of the things on the curvy road was a big lake. And where did that car end up? In the big lake, upside down with the stuntman in it. Thank God they build this steel cage so the stuntman is protected, but the car is destroyed. And we had only one stunt car, and we had to use it the next day. So nonetheless, stunts and special effects had to stay up all night long to prepare that car to be used again the next day, and to redo the stunt because it didn't work. And the other thing that was crazy on that movie was we were shooting at an old, and I mean old, like 200-year-old farmhouse in Spanish Fork. And it was a huge corn field chase in a cornfield, and it was in the fall, except the corn had already expired. And so we had to have helicopters spray paint the corn from the sky green so that in the movie, the corn was green for our purposes. We were shooting at this house, and one of the interesting things about this house that when we arrived, it had 7 doors like with an awning and steps and railing, and 7 of them around the outside. It was owned by the Historical Society, and I had asked, why are there 7 doors? And the historian expert said, because many, many years ago in polygamy in the 1800s, if you could not afford a door, you could not take on a new bride. And that was amazing because each door was an entrance into the house as if it was the only entrance, but there were 7 of them. And that was a real history lesson for me. So that brings us to 2000, where I ended up getting a job on The Wedding Planner with Jennifer Lopez, which is crazy because 2 years before I had actually read the script and done the budget when it was going to be Sandra Bullock and Brendan Fraser, which is what I was told. But they didn't either get the funding or it fell apart. And then Adam Shankman, it was his first movie, and he was a rock video choreographer, and he had a relationship with Jennifer Lopez, and he brought her to the project. Off they were going, except I was not the original producer. I was a replacement producer. The movie was in a bit of financial trouble, and I was invited to come in and help. There's always a padding on movies, a cushion in case of emergency, and they were like 4 million over the cushion, and they hadn't even started shooting. So I had to make changes to be able to put it back into the budget. I have an expression that says my job as a line producer, as the money producer, is to take their 747 vision and put it into a 2-car garage. This was a case of taking their enormous wedding planner vision, which was to shoot in San Francisco, and the incredible wedding scenes, incredible, and the clothes and Jennifer. And people always ask me, what was she like? She was lovely to me. She was absolutely lovely. She is surrounded by lovely people. I thought that her perks list, celebrities are invited sometimes in a contract to have a perks, like items that they request special, like you've heard, oh, they wanted green M&Ms, or all the green M&Ms pulled out of their bucket. Jennifer had really interesting requests, like she liked Diptyque candles and Louis Vuitton sheets, and she wanted a hotel room with a big bath. And those were her asks, and we got along very well, and it was an interesting experience. It was my first invite to a major celebrity party. She sent me a personal invitation to come to her and P. Diddy, Puffy's Oscar party in 2000, and it was going to be in the St. Francis Hotel at the presidential suite. And I was invited, and a lot of the other producers weren't invited, but I was invited. And not only that, my dog Amy, who was the little dog I always took with me, a little black terrier I took with me to work, Amy was invited to the party, and it was like a white pajama party. And Amy had white pajamas that the wardrobe department bought her white pajamas to wear, Amy the dog. And I had pajamas, and I went to the party, and I'm an avid photographer. I spend a lot of time taking pictures, and at that time it was 35 millimeter film. I went to the party. I'm not a big partier. I'm not a big drinker. I remember the party going very late, and I remember waking up the next day in my bed with my pajamas on, with my dog and my camera. And I picked up the camera, and all the film had been taken out of my camera. It was all gone. And I don't remember how or who took it, or maybe I put it down and one of the people took it out, but it was gone. So that was my fun wedding planner story, and I have a few more from that movie. And then I went on and I worked as a volunteer at juvenile hall helping incarcerated youth downtown LA, which was a really fascinating experience for me to be able to give back and help children who were going away for life in prison without the possibility of parole from 12 to 17 years old, which was mind-blowing to me. But I was a volunteer and giving back, and that experience has its own story, but I wanted to give back. That was between movies. I tried to always help and work with Homeboy Industries, who I love. Shout out to Homeboy Industries, and giving back to the community. Then I went off and I made more movies for Joel Silver. My big one was Kiss Kiss Bang Bang with Robert Downey and Val Kilmer and Michelle Monaghan and Shane Black. That was no easy task, but we got through it. I was a producer on that movie, and my point of all of this is just to tell you that I didn't plan my journey, but I accepted the plan when it landed. Kept saying yes to the plan. So sometimes we don't always have plans that we make, but we have plans that unfold for us and they work out. You know, I've heard people say, "Oh, I didn't plan to marry that person, but I did and it worked out." Or I didn't plan to be a parent, or I didn't plan to live in this place, but sometimes they really work out. And my plan really manifested this really great journey and story and life, which landed us back to where I'm telling you and how I ended up here, which was when Hollywood stopped. I am sure that there is another plan for all of us. That's the whole point, is that leaning into our fears and going, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to go forward with this plan that I didn't plan, but it seems good. I always say the hardest job is to find shoes that fit. These shoes fit me. It just took a turn a few years ago. That was not my fault and was not anywhere on the radar. When the phone stops ringing and Hollywood isn't calling, I actually got called for a job this week, and there's other things coming, but it's not enough anymore for me to believe I can lean into it and rely on it. I've started my podcast. I want to try something new. Obviously, in my life, I've done nothing but try new things, between going from bartending to PA to stand-up comedian and accountant and producer. It's unfolded for me. I'm really blessed that it did. But I will say this. I spent my whole life behind the camera, and I was a very private person. I don't have accounts and social media, and I don't put pictures of my children up in the world. It's been really interesting, this podcast journey, because I don't know really anything about the internet. So please be patient with me as I learn, because so much as a few days ago, I said to my daughter, who's 20, "What is a thumbnail?" I mean, I knew what a thumb drive was, but I don't know what a thumbnail is. And she said, "Well, it's a photo." And I said, "Oh, well, why don't they call it a photo?" And she looked at me and she said, "Mother, I am not explaining the internet to you anymore." So my daughter's not going to explain the internet to me, and I have to learn all by myself. I spend unthinkable amounts of hours watching videos and YouTubes and podcasts and learning by myself how to edit and how to add music and make a website. And this is so complicated for me. This is like a new language. I'm having a good time. I'm really happy to use my voice. My journey is interesting. My tale is unusual, and it's a Hollywood story. It's been a dream, and I've had a great time. But if this is where I have to get off the train and get on another one, this is where I'm going to do it. I really look forward to telling more stories, telling you about recent years, who I've worked with, what I've done, where I've traveled. I was able to make a magic carpet ride out of my journey. I have worked in incredible parts of the world. I have met the most amazing people that changed my life. I got to hire my friends, work with my friends, meet new friends, stay up late and figure out the craziest production dilemmas. And I will share my Hollywood stories and how we came to solutions when things would break or actors would get sick or something crazy would happen or we'd have to switch days. It was the cinema Rubik's Cube. It was scripted. It wasn't reality. We had to put it back together when the wheels fell off. And that wasn't even in COVID. Those were during regular times. Things always fall apart somewhere in production. The greatest thing is putting them back together and figuring out how to do it and working with people who come together and figure it out. We work in the rain, we're wet, we're tired, we're exhausted, we work nights, but we made it work. That's how I feel about my podcast. And that's how the advice I feel about giving other people and talking about the greatness of what's next. I'm excited. This is very unusual for me, but I'm doing it. I'm here. I showed up. I'm talking and telling my stories, and I give anybody thumbs up for picking yourself up, stepping past your fear, because this is all we know. Corporations are closing and people are losing their jobs and people are laid off from their jobs, or their children are coming home without a job. These are crazy times. It lends itself to crazy ideas and crazy opportunities, and maybe not so crazy, maybe just new. And it's how I encourage my kids to go for the fun, go for the outside of the box. You don't have to go for inside of the box. I did not stay inside the box. I was pushing the box down from the time I was 16. I wanted to do something different. It just keeps unfolding. Life has a way of changing your plans, the ones you never planned to change. My name is Carrie Morrow. I will continue to tell you all my stories and invite my friends to come here and tell you theirs, what they're up to next, how they're going to find their way. We're all going to figure this out together. I'm very grateful you came, and I look forward to my next episode of What the Heck Next. Please hit that subscribe button, like and follow for more episodes.